With insane expectations, bigger visuals, darker themes, and James Cameron, Avatar Fire and Ash comes once again, trying to prove that spectacle still matters in a world which is drowning in their own sequels. Welcome everybody to my channel with Spacewalker. My name is Yash and today I'm going to review the movie Avatar Fire and Ash, which is the third installment in James Cameron's Avatar saga that has finally hit the Indian cinemas on December 19 this year. The movie has been teased, delayed, debated and hyped for years, and now that it's finally here, the real question isn't when it is releasing. It's whether this chapter actually takes the franchisee forward or just cooks with the same formula blended with a new coat of ash. So here's me telling you about some fiery and ashy expectations from the movie, along with my recommendation whether you should watch the spectacle in the theaters. Let's get one thing out of the way right now. Avatar Fire and Ash is visually insane. That part is not up for debate. James Cameron once again proves that when it comes to large-scale cinematic worlds, he's playing a completely different game from everyone else. Fire and Ash takes Pandora into darker, harsher territory, volcanic landscapes, scorched environments, and a color palette that trades blues and greens for deep reds, blacks, and glowing embers. And this shift isn't just cosmetic. The visuals actually reflect the tone of the story. This is a more aggressive, more hostile version of Pandora, and you feel it in every frame. The CGI here isn't about looking realistic anymore, it's about being believable. The ash in the air, the heat distortion, the way light interacts with smoke and lava, it all sells the illusion. What Cameron does better than almost anyone in scale. Massive environments don't feel like backgrounds, they feel lived in. You're not watching characters walking through a VFX set. You're watching them exist inside a functioning ecosystem. That said, the film occasionally crosses the line between immersive and indulgent. There are moments where the visuals linger a bit too long, clearly aware of how impressive they are. It's stunning, but sometimes it slows the pacing, reminding you that you're watching a spectacle rather than being pulled forward by the story. Still, when Avatar Fire and Ash works visually, it's unmatched. The composition, the lighting, the use of fire and shadow, this is blockbuster filmmaking at its most technical confident. The movie introduces us to a new clan called the Mangwan, or popularly known as the Ash People. Although not much details have been shed around their backstory as to why they are the way they are, but in a particular scene, Varang, as played by Una Chaplin, who happens to be the Tsahik or the leader of the clan, exclaimed the following: "The fire came from the mountain when I was little, burnt our forest. My people cried for help, but Ava did not come. So I went to the fire and I learnt its way." The lines dropping a brief into her traumatic history. Una has played her commendable part as the antagonist. Though not much screen time was given to her, the character's expressions clearly reflected her desire for spreading destruction, her rage and fire across Pandora. What made the character feel fierce and dreadful was the defined stature of the followers of the Mangwan clan, as they emoted with controlled intensity, with on-point expressions of judging and assessing the outsiders or the sky people, like they are constantly deciding whether something is useful or is expendable. One of my personal observation of these followers was their stature when they were around Varang, as they kept their heads low in front of her, almost like they are bowing out of respect for their Tsahik and to show them of what they mean as the right path. Let's get this out of the way. Avatar Fire and Ash does not have a complex protagonist. It has a morally spotless one, and that's exactly the problem. Jake Sully, as played by Sam Worthington, is no longer a character. He's a symbol, a walking checklist of correct choices. In Fire and Ash, he doesn't struggle with morality, he represents it. And when your protagonist is always right, your story immediately loses its depth. A layered protagonist is defined by contradiction, doubt, bad calls. Jake has none of that here. Every decision he makes is morally justified, emotionally valid, get proven correct by the narrative. There's no tension between what he wants and what he should do. That tension is what creates the character. Without it, he is just a delivery system for the film's message. The only place where the viewers can have a glimpse into grey areas of Jake as a character is when he tried to kill Spider, as played by Jack Champion. As he was confronted with the dilemma to protect the kid from the Sky People versus to protect the Na'vi from the colonizers, who were studying the human kid for why and how was he able to breathe on the planet which was alien to him, a study that could further lead to assistance in colonizing the planet by the human race. But we already know that Jake won't cross a line. We already know he will choose a family, nature, and honor every single time. We already know that the film will reward him for it. So, what is at risk? Not his soul, not his beliefs, not his identity. Only the outcomes of battle. But that can also be predicted clearly when Ava, clans, and animals agree with him during every battle. With the consequence bending to only Jake's righteousness, it is safe to say that the entire saga is a getting mundane with sprinklers of exceptional cinematography and visual effects that are catering to the masses' urge to see the spectacle on an IMAX screen, howsoever predictable the plot turns out to be. Fire and Ash doesn't just rhyme with earlier Avatar movies, it straight up copies its own homework. By the final act, Fire and Ash leans so hard on nostalgia that it stops feeling like a conclusions and starts feeling like a remix. If you've watched Avatar 1 and Avatar The Way of Water, you already know where this is going, beat for beat. Once again, Jake Sully rebonds with Toruk, once again he rallies the clans, once again Pandora's wildlife becomes a living weapon. This was awe-inspiring the first time, the second time it was still effective, the third time, it's predictable. The film isn't escalating the myth, it's replaying it. Ava intervening used to feel spiritual, earned, and thematic. Here, it feels like a button in the story that is pressed when it writes itself into a corner. When nature always shows up on cue, the tension disappears. Stakes only matter if failure is actually possible. The Tulkun breaking their pacifist code, powerful in the way of water, but now it's amplified without being deepened. More chaos, more destruction, more wailing ships, yet less emotional weight. Bigger isn't better when the meaning stays the same. And yes, Quaritch once again uses Sully family hostages to pull Jake out of hiding. Another mano a mano duel, another this ends now moment. If your climax can be predicted an hour in advance, you didn't build tension. You followed a template. From Toruk tossing helicopters to humans drowning in large-scale chaos, the imagery constantly reminds you of moments you have already seen and already felt more strongly. Avatar Fire and Ash is a triumph of craftsmanship and a failure of narrative ambition. Stunning to look at, competently acted, thematically earnest, but it plays the hits instead of taking risks. The movie proves one thing clearly: Pandora keeps evolving, its storytelling doesn't. And that's the real disappointment. So that's all for the video, folks. Like the video if you value honest breakdowns, subscribe for no nonsense film analysis. You can also follow me on my Instagram channel by the name of Witspace Walker. I'll see you in the next one. Till then, ciao.